The next item of business is members' business debate on motion 19957 in the name of Claire Baker on Scan Art in Action campaign. And this debate will be concluded without any questions being put. Would those members who wish to speak in the debate please press the request to speak buttons, and I call on Claire Baker to open the debate for around 7 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. We may be a select few this lunchtime, but I am delighted to be holding this debate today, which recognises the Scottish Contemporary Art Network's Art in Action campaign. Some consider that a week before the general election may not be the easiest time to focus discussion on contemporary art, but this debate is coming at a very fortuitous time. The Scottish Government have indicated that the culture strategy is imminent, the Scottish budget is on the horizon, and internal discussions will no doubt be taking place on priorities. And the Culture, Tourism, Europe and External Affairs Committee are about to publish their report into arts funding. This is a good time to raise the profile of the arts and culture, and I thank all the MSPs who signed the motion. There are many building blocks to a better country. One of those building blocks is culture. The Government's National Performance Framework recognises culture and creativity as an outcome, and a healthy cultural infrastructure has a role to play in achieving all of the outcomes. Culture and creativity are not an add-on, they are part and parcel of how we live our lives. The Scottish Contemporary Art Network, known as SCAN, is a member-led network which is committed to championing, cultivating and supporting the contemporary art sector in Scotland. Their core aim is that the role, impact and benefits of contemporary visual art is properly recognised as central to our society, our culture and our economy, and also that those creating and working in the sector are valued and supported in their ambitions. SCAN invited MSPs to be involved in the Art in Action campaign over the course of the summer. This was a valuable opportunity for MSPs to visit a local gallery or studio and hear directly about the concerns of artists trying to make a living, the connectivity of art to the local community, the value of contemporary art to a local economy, the power and potential of art to transform people's lives and support community cohesion, and the funding pressures individual artists and organisations face. My own visit was to the Fife village of Strathkinnis, which hosts the 201 Telephone Box Gallery. The gallery sits on a residential street. It is a former red telephone box that was converted into a contemporary art gallery and a project led by local artist and curator Lada Wilson. Members of the local community and the Strathkinnis Community Trust came along to the visit, and it was clear that the gallery is valued in the village and enabled people to connect with contemporary village art literally on their doorstep, which prompted interest, discussion and conversation. The phone box was on the BT list for removal, but following adoption by the Trust, Lada Wilson drove the project to convert it into a gallery and curates the programme. All exhibitions are complemented by an artist talk or presentation and sometimes a workshop. My visit was just one of the length and breadth of the country, involving 21 MSPs from all parties, to places where contemporary art is created, to meet artists and to galleries where contemporary art is shown. Colleagues visited artists and art workers in venues as varied as Platform in Easter House, Campbell Line in rural Thornhill, the brand new Circus Art Space in Inverness, Rig Arts in a former tobacco factory in Greenock, Pier Arts Centre in Stromness, Glasgow Gallery of Modern Art. I could go on, and I hope to hear of members' experiences this afternoon. Scotland boasts a contemporary art scene that is lauded around the world. The artwork contemporary artists create, make and facilitate can feed long-term change within our communities, building empathy and resilience, creating a space for those from all backgrounds to explore new ideas and spark a wide range of economic activity. There are many examples of the social benefit that artists bring. At the start of the new parliamentary year, I hosted a reception in Parliament for MSPs to recognise the campaign and hear from artists about their experience of working in Scotland. It is difficult for contemporary artists to survive, to continue to produce work and to develop their talent. We heard a call for politicians to not only value art, but to invest more in it. Some of us even got words of wisdom from the advice bar, and we all got to hear the wonderful Karine Polwart sing. The campaign demonstrated the impact that high-quality art has upon local economies, on inclusion of diverse heritage and culture, on environmental awareness, improving health outcomes and much more. Crucially, it raised awareness of the inherent value of culture and creative activity to our nation's well-being and the need for progressive investment in order to unlock that potential for generations to come. So now that MSPs have had the positive experience of the visit and have heard about the value of contemporary art, the question is, how do we support and value the work going on in Scotland when it comes to decision making? At the end of 2017, SCAN, along with the Scottish Artists Union and Engage Scotland, launched the Visual Arts Manifesto. Among its asks, it called for longer-term public investment that supports the creative and professional development of artists, workers and organisations. During their recent inquiry on arts funding, the Culture, Tourism, Europe and External Affairs Committee heard evidence about challenges for artists and cultural freelancers in making a consistent living. Submissions that we heard covered low income, insecure work and the additional pressure of women artists who have no maternity pay, with support expressed for a universal basic income. We also heard views on current funding arrangements, including the importance of long-term models to support career progression. The committee have heard support for committing a greater proportion of spending to culture. Currently just 0.2% of the Scottish budget goes to its arm's-length funding body. There were calls for an increase in core funding and for other budgets, whether that is within the public spending or within private investment, to invest in the arts. Art in Action campaigners ask that a percentage of every major funding initiative across relevant policy areas should be invested in creating a specific role for art in order to match the ambition displayed in the draft cultural strategy. This would be just one way to recognise the skills and experience of artists and the cultural workforce, and one way to invest strategically and sustainably for a more vibrant, more innovative and more resilient nation. Contemporary visual art can support our understanding of the world. It can look to address some of the big debates and conflicts of our time, and it also seeks to interpret the human condition. It can make us smile, make us think, it can provoke a reaction. In a time of uncertainty and division, art has the ability to question and bring people together. This year's Turner Prize, often seen as career-defining, is being split between the 4 finalists at their request. The artists have described it as a symbolic gesture of cohesion. Presiding Officer, I will close with their words, which encapsulates the important role art can play in our society. At this time of political crisis in Britain and much of the world, when there's already so much that divides and isolates people and communities, we will feel strongly motivated to use the occasion of the prize to make a collective statement in the name of communality, multiplicity and solidarity, in art as in society. Thank you.
We now move to the open debate. Speeches of around 4 minutes, please. Stuart McMillan, followed by Rachel Hamilton.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Claire Baker for putting down the motion and securing this important and also timely members' debate. Claire Baker mentioned the aspects of the culture strategy, the budget and also the Culture, Tourism, Europe and External Relations Committee inquiry that both Claire and I are members of that committee. So this debate very much is timely, notwithstanding the fact it's a week before an election that's going to take place. During the summer, I like colleagues, took part in one of the visits in my constituency. I visited Rig Arts in Greenock and spoke to Karen Orr. Karen and her husband Jason are the two leading lights behind Rig Arts. Rig are very much at the heart of the culture and creativity in Inverclyde, and they work out of the old tobacco warehouse that Claire Baker touched upon. That's in Greenock. And something like that particular building is such a wide and varied history. Clearly it was a tobacco warehouse. It also it was a billet for Canadian soldiers during World War II, and it now is the home of Rig Arts, providing this creative opportunity within the constituency. The way that Rig use this old but beautiful building is amazing. Some areas are used as prop stores, other areas are set out as a cinema, and certainly on one side of the internal wall is used as an area to actually film or to show films. And there's also areas for artists to come in and paint and do their creative work. But behind that there's also an area set aside for music. And I'm led to believe that the acoustics in that particular area are outstanding. And certainly this year, at the end of the Galoscians Festival, Galoscians Festival is the beginning of Inverclyde's Winter Festival programme. The final event was a concert that took place inside the tobacco warehouse, and it genuinely was. It was a wonderful occasion, and certainly the acoustics were great. But it actually highlighted the flexibility and the opportunity that that building can offer to the Inverclyde community. In terms of SCAN, certainly from the SCAN's website, the Scottish Contemporary Art Network, is a member-led organisation which was set up to champion, connect and cultivate the contemporary visual art sector in Scotland. And the Art in Action campaign, which clearly saw 21 MSPs from across all the parties make visits to artists and organisations around Scotland throughout the summer, it certainly is something that I very much welcome. I think one of the aspects that's touched upon was the issue of the regeneration of local economies, the inclusion of the diverse cultures, environmental awareness, and also in improving the health outcomes for individuals. This is where Rig Arts, I think, genuinely excel. In Inverclyde, in Greenock, there's a particular area called Broom Hill, and a wide regeneration project took place there from Riverclyde Homes, and also with NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, with support from the Scottish Government. There's a new health centre is being built. But Rig Arts were there at the very outset in terms of the cultural input that they have. So it's not just about the over £50 million of investment going into that particular part of town. So that regeneration is welcome on its own, but it's about the multi-generational activity that's taking place, the diverse cultural elements taking place, as well as the environmental awareness that Rig Arts are certainly bringing to that local area. And ultimately, that will also have a positive effect upon the health impacts upon many of the people who stay in that area, notwithstanding the fact we're going to have a brand new £22 million health centre as well. But one other aspect I want to touch upon, just in terms of the arts, many members will be aware of George Wiley. George was stayed in Gourock, and some of George's work has been very much on show across Scotland over many years. There's a new cruise terminal that is going to take place in Greenock through some of the funding from the City Deal project. It's one of the City Deal projects, and the Cabinet Secretary is very much well aware of this. And part of that building is going to have an area for George Wiley. So it's about actually bringing the art actually to anyone who actually comes into that building, but also encouraging more people to go to that building to go and see it. So it's not just about a terminal for people coming in, it's actually about a tourism offer to have people to go and see it. And many members will be aware of certainly George's clock statue with two legs outside Buchanan bus station, as well as the question marks along the River Clyde from Port Glasgow to Langbank, which George was certainly, that was part of his offer to the art world. But I am conscious of time, so I will close, Presiding Officer, but I do want to once again congratulate Claire Baker for securing this debate, and I do want to welcome the SCAN Art in Action campaign, and I wish it every success going forward. Thank you very much.
Rachel Hamilton, followed by Patrick Harvey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First of all, I want to thank my colleague Claire Baker for bringing this debate to the Chamber. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to visit one of the Art in Action projects during the summer, but I have made contact with them and plan to do so in the future. Art's not only, as we know, about beautiful pieces of artwork in a gallery. It has the ability to transform the way we express our emotions, communicate ideas and interact with our environment, and Art in Action embodies this by addressing three key areas: art being very much part of our everyday lives and acting as a catalyst to a richer society, and also being a crucial part of decision making. And we know that art can transform the mental and health well-being of many of our fellow citizens. As part of the Art in Action work just up the road in the constituency in Bonnyrigg, artists from ArtLink Edinburgh's Ideas Team and Sensory Workshops created artworks that work alongside weekly sensory workshops for people with profound and multiple learning difficulties. And the artists use a range of sensory art pieces such as ambient sound, vibration, projection, laser and mirror balls, to name but a few. And these are used to create beautiful and stimulating environments. As I've mentioned in the Chamber before, I believe social prescribing could have a transformative impact on our NHS. And having seen it work in particular with people with learning difficulties, it could also be used to tackle social isolation and a range of other mental health issues too. And I think calling for a stronger recognition of this value is important, and it will take bold action through government policy. In 2017, SCAN submitted evidence to the Scottish Parliament's Culture Committee inquiry on arts funding and urged government and funders to think more strategically around supporting a sector that brings real value to our society. SCAN argue that decision makers should think differently about art and in turn support and invest a sector that could bring real value to Scottish society, not just on a local level but on a national level too. Sorry, I meant that the other way around, but not, it's on a national level, but in a local level too, because on a local level, sometimes the funding can get very squeezed. The Scottish Household Survey found that 84% of Scottish people say that their local area would lose something of value if the area lost its art funding and cultural activities. So it's important to consider that when Creative Scotland make their funding decisions, that they think very carefully about rural and local areas. Closer to home, in the Borders, Scottish Borders Housing Association invited Impact Arts to develop an art master plan for the Stonefield area of Hawick as it underwent a period of regeneration. And Impact Arts today have a stand in the garden lobby area, and they are demonstrating their strong ethos of partnership, working in collaboration with a variety of partners, including third sector, local and national government, prisons and housing associations. They work alongside local partners, including my own local Borders council, to develop a plan for the regeneration of Hawick, undertaking in-depth consultation and research, culminating in the creation of an arts master plan. And these include key theme priorities such as identifying art works, landscaping, communal space and creative play spaces too. But to conclude, Presiding Officer, we know that art has the ability to transform lives and bring positive social and economic changes. And through campaigns such as SCAN's Art in Action, helping those with learning difficulties to inspire Arts in the Borders, offering a new approach to regeneration, housing generation, art has a pivotal role to play. But I just want to make the point, important point, that we need to ensure that this great work is funded properly, and we need to see the Scottish Government properly fund our arts sectors to fulfil the aims of the draft cultural strategy, and a properly funded sector will absolutely be able to deliver these excellent projects, but also support a fragile arts infrastructure and artists' livelihoods on a national and a local level. Thank you.
The last contribution in the open debate is from Patrick Harvey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and can I, like others, thank Claire Baker for bringing the motion and indeed for hosting the reception that she mentioned a wee bit earlier in the year. I also had the opportunity to take part in a couple of visits over the summer, so I'd like to thank SCAN and their colleagues for welcoming me, first of all, to a platform in Easterhouse, where they'd been collaborating between that local community resource and the Glasgow Women's Library, exploring issues of what home means when a person is of more than one place, in an exhibition called Home Where Home Is Not. And not only exploring that complex and challenging theme, but also because it was working across these two sites between Easterhouse and the Glasgow Women's Library, bringing together women who were involved with both those projects, who might otherwise never have met one another, let alone collaborated together in a piece of work like this. And later in the year, I went to the Glasgow Sculpture Studio, which I have to admit I was aware of, but I had never visited before, and I was a wee bit blown away by the amount of work that I saw going on there. The biggest arts production facility in Scotland, they were proud to inform me, and I got introduced to some of the artists who work in contemporary sculptural practice. And I think of the number of visits that SCAN and the Art in Action campaign have organised with 21 MSPs across the country has helped to bring recognition for the role that contemporary art plays across social policy and underlining the need for sustained investment so that future generations can benefit from that cultural resource. And one of the key messages of the campaign says art is an essential part of our lives. I think it's important to recognise this is about more than just thinking about what is possible to commercialise or what is the economic impact. We can measure a significant economic impact, but the value of art and people's access to being able to enjoy art and to contribute to art and express themselves creatively is about far more than just that economic or commercial impact. But the work that I saw at the Glasgow Sculpture Studio did involve playing a big part in building strong relationships between the local community and the artists and the local environment through a range of projects and workshops. One of them, called Channels, helps to provide personal development programs for young people between the ages of 16 and 25. And by providing these workshops where young people can develop their personal skills, talents and confidence, they're simultaneously contributing to our creative sector and improving the lives of young people. On the tour, I met some of the occupants, some of the tenants in the studios, James Regler and Kate V. Robinson. James told me that the Glasgow Sculpture Studio is attractive for artists because of the resources that it makes available that otherwise they'd never be able to afford, and how the organisation fosters a spirit of collaboration between artists and between different disciplines in their work. And Kate told me that she'd been able to innovate her ways of working in ways that wouldn't have been possible without access to the studios. She's also one of the founding members of the Sculpture Placement Group, which allows artworks to be borrowed and displayed in community settings, commercial and public spaces, instead of sitting in art studios. That allows it to be tangible, to be real in people's everyday lives. And there's a social justice aspect to this as well, because the visual arts have been moving more in the direction of media that people can access, frankly, on a laptop, rather than on the expensive facilities that they don't have access to without places like the Sculpture Studio. So if we want the visual arts and contemporary art to be for everybody, rather than an exclusive occupation for those who can afford access to it, we really do need to address the funding issues. The Visual Arts Manifesto has already been mentioned, so I won't go into that in detail, but I think we should recognise that it asks of us all here at Holyrood to involve ourselves in the wider discussion about arts funding and support. It needs to be sustained so that Scotland can be a place where cultural and artistic creativity can flourish and everybody can find an opportunity to express their talent. Thank you again to Claire Baker for bringing the motion.
I now invite Fiona Hislop to respond to the debate for around 7 minutes. Please, Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I'm very pleased that we've had the opportunity to celebrate the Scottish Contemporary Art Network's Art in Action campaign and the important role that art plays in public life, and to congratulate Claire Baker for securing this debate. I particularly liked her reference to culture as a building block for a better Scotland. It's always been a pleasure to promote and highlight the excellence of Scottish culture, including the excellence of the art produced in Scotland. And this excellence has been clearly highlighted through the Art in Action campaign. And I've always been clear that the arts should be funded for their own sake, to help ensure that individual artists are supported to produce art for its own sake. It should provide opportunities for individuals and communities to enjoy and embrace culture and experience great art. And of course, we all know that the arts can also transform society and empower individuals. And one of the strengths of the Art in Action campaign is that it has not only showcased high quality art, but also shown the myriad of different contributions that art can make to local communities. So I've enjoyed learning about the works that have been highlighted by the campaign. It's been fascinating also to hear about the way that artists have worked with communities with projects not only in galleries and studios, but all kinds of venues, inside and outside, from the seashore to a bus. We've just heard from Patrick Harvey about the work of Home at the platform in Easterhouse, and the Glasgow Women's Library, and the always inspiring Glasgow Sculpture Studio. And Stuart McMillan talked about Rig Arts and the Tobacco House in Greenock. And I was very pleased to hear about the opportunity for a George Wiley exhibition space at the proposed terminal. So I am very supportive of many of the key messages from the Art in Action campaign. The campaign seeks to highlight the role that art plays in our lives. And I absolutely agree that art is and should be an integral part of our lives. And I welcome any opportunity to celebrate the important role of art in communities. The campaign also seeks to highlight both the economic contribution of art and its role in our wider prosperity and the role it can play in long-term change. I am very clear that culture has the potential to transform lives, and I thought that was very ably demonstrated by Rachel Hamilton, the example she gave. And art in action generally should be a central consideration in our goals in so many ways, including reducing inequality and improving well-being. Funding for the arts is always an important question in discussions such as the one we're having today, and the campaign also comments about the percentage of the Scottish Government budget that goes to Creative Scotland. Of course, spend on culture by the Scottish Government extends far beyond Creative Scotland, and spend on art comes from beyond the culture portfolios from other departments. So I've long been clear that funding for the arts should not just come from specific culture funding, but should also leverage in funding from other areas of public spending. This is both necessary and justified because culture benefits so many other areas. And an initiative like SCAN's Art in Action is always welcome because it not only highlights artistic excellence, but also shows the very real value of culture beyond this in contributing to improving lives in our communities in so many different ways. This is not about thinking about art in a transactional way, it's about celebrating art in and of itself, ensuring that excellent art is available for everyone to enjoy, but also recognising, promoting the much wider role that art can play, and importantly, the art practice plays. We would also like to see more money, of course, in the culture budget, but of course that money has to come from somewhere. That's why I also reject a silo approach to the culture budget and will continue with what has been a smart and pragmatic route and ensure that we focus on the total impact of that money, not which budget it comes from. Culture spend reaching artists also benefits from spending, for example, from regeneration, from city deals, from justice, from education. And I'm happy to give a few examples of this. Much of the tourism budget for the Year of Coast and Waters will go directly to artists and artistic activities. The South of Scotland Economic Partnership is helping to deliver a fresh approach to economic development in the South of Scotland and has included funding for the Trimontium Museum in Melrose. A whole range of organisations, including many public sector organisations such as Highlands and Isles Enterprise, provide funding, for example, to Expo North, which is Scotland's leading creative industries festival, which took place in July this year. So these are just a few ways that demonstrate how we have to be pragmatic and recognise that funding in arts can come from just beyond the culture budget. We will be publishing, as we've heard, our culture strategy soon, and I would like to highlight the strategy's themes, as all three have great relevance to our debate today. The debate motion raises support for the creative and professional development of artists, workers and organisations, and the strategy's theme of strengthening culture will engage with this issue. It represents a significant opportunity to rethink the boundaries between public, private and community so that new ways of working together in genuine partnership to support culture can be explored. This includes support through advocacy, championing and investing in culture, as well as brokering relationships within the sector and the wider industry. I think that's particularly relevant to contemporary art. The Transforming Through Culture strategy theme is focused on the role that culture, including visual art, can play in contributing to other policy outcomes, making art and culture central to these issues. And the culture sector provides services critical to the success, the health, the happiness, the wealth and the reputation of Scotland. And the culture strategy will demonstrate the huge benefits cultural services offer in tackling inequalities in our communities. The third theme of the culture strategy is empowering through culture, which celebrates culture in our communities. It celebrates culture as an essential part of public and civic life. And like the two other themes of the culture strategy, this is very much what the Art in Action campaign has been about. So a few weeks ago, Presiding Officer, all of us received a beautiful work of art from the campaign by the artist Ruth Ewan. It is both a piece of art to be treasured, and through the words of Mary Brooksbank, it is an important message for us to absorb. So I welcome the discussion we've had today. I hope that all of us will keep Mary Brooksbank's message with us as we think about the challenges that we face as parliamentarians and as we continue to promote and celebrate the role that art plays in our lives and in the lives of our communities and the constituencies that we represent. Thank you.
That concludes the debate, and this meeting is suspended until 2:30.